Hey guys, this is P. Francis McNichol, otherwise known as Phil to my friends. Welcome. I'm doing a reading today of Daggled, Fields Forgot, and I thank you. I hope more people can watch this video and enjoy some writing. I do. Also get into writing themselves if that is perhaps a love they never started. I hope they start and work on it, and maybe I can help some people inadvertently through my poetry. I am only working on, I love poetry now more than I ever had. However, I love my long game better, and I like my storytelling because I do it in different ways every time. My writing, I try to be unique so that every reader can enjoy it each and every time. It's not for any one sex, it's not for any one gender or male, female, old, young. I want to say usually my target audience is anyone from 16 and above, adult content, but it's on paper. Parents, calm down, it's not pornographic. It might have adult themes and adult language and stuff like that, but it's for adults in general, okay? Because it's adult content, it's adult subject matter in particular, and it's tragedy, it might be sexual at times, it might be violent at times, but I do not write things for the sake of slaughter and slasher, gratuitous violence, to especially females. Like I was raised with all the slasher movies. They might have been very scary, I want to say, at one time, and it's like everybody's getting whacked, for lack of a better term. And I am not for that whacking constantly, and that's the only part of the movie. I like to see good plots in them. I like to see most of the people, younger, I want to say college-age students, once they realize that something bad is going on, they themselves band together to try to figure out the mystery. Who is it? Okay? So on and so forth. My ultimate goal is to do movies and bring movies here in Virginia. And in the meantime, I have so much inspiration, historically speaking, my own story to tell that I tell in different ways, with a lot of loss, a lot of tragedy, a lot of overcoming, a lot of victories in those tragedies, so on and so forth. So I really enjoy doing poems because they're little projects. I don't just throw words together. I know what the words are. I look for great synonyms, and I try to leave a touch of chronology and historical context there, with that kind of flavor, that Shakespearean flavor, that medieval times flavor. Because some of those words, people know it if you can look online and look up a ton of synonyms and then look up etymology and their origins. You can find so much about Old English that is really beautiful. That just came out of favor with quicker words to say. That means the same thing. You know, the roots of their older words being shortened sometimes. Sometimes extra suffixes and prefixes being placed on it, so on and so forth. But I have studied Old English, and though I cannot speak fluently, I love my computer. Though I cannot speak fluently in other languages, I know where to look because of those root texts, those root words, okay? And it's just amazing how things occur in historical context, chronological order. I can figure out a lot of things by that context and how old the words are. And so you think about major events in Western Civ, with that same language, you can write your own stories also, taking place at a different time, when I call it period writing, okay? Certain period in time you can author. And I love the Old English languages, and the tenses are a lot more difficult because a lot of the verbs are not like the actual deed and doing in modern English. So I look forward to, examining those. Are they so similar that a reader doesn't have to look it up because they know exactly what the author is writing? I like a little more meat on the bone, and it's closer to home where people can understand it. I've done a couple poems only, I want to say, with some basic modern verbs and whatnot, and very little adjectives, and the rest I did in Old English. I want to say adverbs and whatnot, and some actual nouns in Old English, and it was, for lack of a better term, it was all Old English, and you can lose people that way. It might be interesting at first, but I think theatrically, like I want to say, not only Shakespeare, but a play perhaps that is making fun of Old English language because people are taking themselves too serious, like perhaps Shakespeare's more serious plays. Okay, and I think of just many comedy movies in general, and things in my past that do make fun of that high school kind of English we have to take, or that high school kind of Spanish we have to take. And it's not to insult people in the higher education literature majors and professors. It's not. It's just not taking ourselves too seriously with a very specific and a very great knowledge of digits. Like the words themselves, the digits, used for us to tell a story. So we could be doing some improv or what have you of Shakespearean plays, and we're not taking it too seriously. So conversely, with my later learning older English to expand that vocabulary, trust me, the modern vocabulary I have no hold to. And I am still working on it, expanding it. But the Old English have some really cool words that can spice up that period work, like my poem. And I did it within a day or two, tinkering with it. And by the time I transferred it to Facebook, I had the meat on the bone where I was happy. And yes, I researched a lot when it was posted right there on Facebook. And I changed it around because of the fields. I have explained this before. All my poetry for the last 3-4 years, I think 4 years now, full 4 years, have been on the phone. It hasn't been transcribed on a computer, then transferred over to one of my emails or something, or one of the word programs so I can refer to it. I try to do that off and on, but then taking something from the computer and taking the flash and putting it to the phone, there seems to be some kind of issue with the word program, and I don't understand it because it's not only about storage, but it will have some of those same short stories or poems from the computer on my phone, but not the last one I did. So it's like, why do it on the computer if it's short work anyways? And I just have inspiration as it pops to me when I'm mobile. So I do a poem, and I'm happy to start it right there and then, and I come back to it. However, when I got the meat on the bone and I'm pretty much where I want, I know that there are common words that are used too much, okay? And it's not the flavor, it's not exactly what I wanted, okay? So you have that leeway, and I don't care if anybody says, oh, you're just looking up words and placing them. No, that's not the case, because the picture is not painted 100%, okay? It's on a better field on Facebook. The fonts look better, okay? Everything in it looks better, flipping back and forth, adding to it as it inspires me to write more, okay, and add on to it. So, 2 Daggled fields forgot. I've used the Daggled word since, I want to say, roughly 2009. It's one of the few words that people don't hardly use anymore, but they can get a great picture of what it is, okay? It's like daggled leather that might be hit a lot. Okay, there might be some indentions into it. It might be some slight tears to it. Okay, daggled, as I have used it in other poems before I even started doing it on Facebook. I want to say closer to 2009, 2010, 2011 when I was homeless. Daggled was a word that stuck out to me, especially having to do with battlefields. I believe Daggled battlefield, don't remember exactly how old all my poems are, but I remember that in particular was an apt description of poetry or my short game in novellas. And I've always loved that word, daggled. Okay. Maybe it applies to like a snaggletooth cartoon character or something. I don't know. So we'll discuss more about the writing of this after the reading. I hope all can read along with me. I finally figured out I can post the poem again and push done. And then when I go to the next page to post the video thing icon is in a white box on the bottom, and I can hit that and do it all at once. So when this video is playing, you can read the poem and you can look at the video. And so it's my hope more people will enjoy my authoring, and my long game could be paid for, honestly. But it's movies I'm looking forward to do with that work. I have no problem working on a project to do a screenplay. However, when I do, I want it to be funded and paid for before we get to that, okay? So I can devote actual time to it and not a full-time job interfering. The only thing I want interfering when I'm doing a big project, I mean a novel, is my family and my kids. You know, I just say that right off the bat. But working a full-time job, overtime hours, I love the smaller projects, and it keeps me happy. So I'm still searching for that angel funder they talk about. It. All they want is tenfold return within a specified time, or you get sued. They're not angel funders. They're more like ghouls. Okay. Daggled fields forgot. And please excuse me, I am going to take it slow and try to do the proper enunciation as I wrote it. Some of the words people pronounce differently at different times. Different people do. By P. Francis McNichol. In whitish hue of mauve entendres, my heart hemorrhaged a coup of magentas, where the slippery greensward came to a halt, a churlish heaven choked on a phlegm malt. Frozen still within a heaving rib-caged breast, the blanket of pall bested a banderole crest. Taut leathery wool unspun in weathering pools, as rubies sunk in the burgundy tarn of fools. The deane, be it a skip, fell in arid mirage, where thirst of the land quaffed souls in barrage. Vapor serfs in swelter abandoned a king's altarage, laid in the tempest prayed nil patina feriage. Lament of dead begot, hills silently recoiled, in sucking red valleys of corpse heaped, spoiled. Grass lay upon fields as a verdance consumed, pale bone marrow glazing thorned-brier tombs. Flesh expiring breath passes in the wind's howl, as the leaden dead slept in a millennia's bow. Slain spirited souls in eyes of spooked magpies linger in bogs underneath a forgotten blonde sty. Infernal suffer torturous flames of penitence as wisps of metal ascend in fogs of benevolence, dissolving in a blush mountain's naval brawn, a juster king found under soiled clod, roots thereon. The end. Well, reading that was better this time than I thought it would be. All right, that was Daggled Fields Forgot. It was written a day or two ago in its entirety, and I proofed it yesterday when I came home after 2 long days. Long days, man, they were long. Overnight shifts. And I fell asleep. I worked on it already, and I fell asleep, and I woke up, and I was like, nah, I'm going to adjust it one more time. And so this is where it stands. I posted it, and I apologize to my friends and possibly fans out there that enjoy reading my poetry. I love throwing the words together. That's the fun part of doing poetry, okay? Let's just say that on an intellectual level. It's fun, okay? However, I'm not a consummate professional, I want to say perfectionist, as I try to be professional as possible. However, when I see something which is not exactly what I'm trying to convey, then I will redo it in a moment's notice. I don't always go through all my poems from months ago, but some guys post on the different groups post my poems belatedly, and I look at it and I was like, can I adjust that? Is it going to matter if I adjust it some? You know, so it's more flamboyant. And I'm kind of like, nah, it can stay. The reason is because we're raw. If you're a poet, you do stuff raw. Sometimes it doesn't look the best, and it doesn't matter. You know, the question is, how often do you do exactly what you're trying to show, what you're trying to portray, what you're trying to write, and hope other people enjoy it just like you wrote it? And then people read it and they're like, that's pretty fucked up. That's pretty good. Being so fucked up like that. I would have never thought something like that. Some of the best compliments I've had is, you can't use AI. I'm like, I don't use AI. Now I'm putting a disclaimer on the end of all poems. Not AI enhanced. I researched the words. Yes, thank you, Google. Okay, I got 3 big dictionaries. I can look up any word. I know the words, and I look up synonyms because I'm researching the history of that word in particular. That gives me more inspiration to write even more. There's no writer's block in my mind. Are there times where I'm more tired because of work and I don't want to write really? Yeah, I'll just take a break. My writing doesn't control me, but it does help me in my art. And art I've loved ever since at least 2003. At least writing 10,000 police reports by hand in the 1990s. Seriously, 10,000 reports. We have like 10 major reports. Us arresting officers used on Washington, D.C. Metropolitan Police Department. Handwritten, including the prosecution report, which had to have all the facts in one big, large narrative that, I don't know, if 250 words are a page, it would be like 10 pages worth. So 2,500 words, 5,000 words, prosecution report. I can only imagine what homicide does. You know, we made it very simple and locked up the people that did the homicide. But I don't know if they write a long one for the Assistant United States Attorney. Things I wonder about. But anyways, I love the words and the research and all that because those words give me incentive to write more. I've never had writer's block, and people talk about it. I know when my mind might draw a blank, and it only takes me a second to go back to what my original thought was, trailing off where I left off. And then all of a sudden it kicks back in. Sometimes the reissuance, I want to say, of that thought is not as deep and not as hurtful. And I kind of look back at it, and then after an hour later, it comes back to me after I already stopped writing for the day. And then I'll see if I can input it and recorrect it somewhat. But it's not published yet. As far as I'm concerned, my work on Facebook is avant-garde. It's practice. And I will throw things together and have my great literary works all assembled one day, maybe posthumously, maybe before I die. However, it is free for people to read. Okay? Here. When I get more, I want to say, assemblage of it, and I consolidate everything and compile everything, then it will be to purchase. However, I practice with poems, and I hope this is testament to especially my long game with Trill of the Red Robin, all my poetry in A Blood Red Sea, and all my short stories in The Disappeared. The movies I want to start out with Trill of the Red Robin, a COVID story. But all the short stories in The Disappeared, man, they would be blockbuster horror movies. And they're not gruesome. I want to say they're pragmatic ghost stories. And they were just thrown together with a pen and a notebook. I have so many pitches I could give to a main editor and make them multi-millionaires. But I can't get my foot in to speak. Can't get my foot in to speak. Because it's always bullshit. It appears like it's bullshit anyways. You do this email thing. Then they say, we're a hybrid company. We like what you said at your works here. This one scene. We love how you did that. Well, go see the contract. We're offering you. You look at their contract, I pay them. No, I own my writing, nobody else does. I don't care whether they say, you don't have an ISBN on it or not. That doesn't matter. You still can't plagiarize other people's works, nor steal their IDs. People get sued penniless because of that. And all you need is a lawyer to know what to do and file the proper lawsuit. I believe in some federal laws. It violates federal laws too. It is a federal law. It's not a state law. So my point is, they can become great novels, and they can also become great movies. And with that little bit of leeway and financial assistance in the meantime, think about it. Your work gets put in a novel, and then that money that you have, you do a screenplay for, and you actually start to make a movie with some of the funds you have, that is yours. It's clear. The publisher is not paying you anything else. Maybe royalties after that the next year or two. Okay? You do a movie for that, you're doing a 2-hour-long commercial for that work that is making everybody money. It's a win-win situation. Win-win situation. And even, I want to say, older people, maybe 10 to 20 years older than me, maybe more. They're all not anti-horror movies. Okay? You can make a classic horror movie that all people enjoy. And it's kind of off the beaten path. I have so many ideas. I do want to see a director that can make it happen. I want to see great actors and show them what I feel when I'm writing it. And this is how exactly I hope it is with their great acting. I don't want to be a dick. I want them to make money too. Anyway, that being said. So, reviewing Daggled Fields Forgot. Again, I repeat, I used the Daggled word before. And it's very fitting, and it's a great word. I suggest people that write period work, from different chronological points of history, look up that word. It could be used in a lot of ways. Okay, whitish hue. I wanted it just one color of mauve, a whitish hue of mauve entendres. Sorry, that's how I've been used to say it, but I haven't used it in years. Entendres, okay. First popped in my head, and I'm like, I know, magenta is one of those colors, plural, and I did research just to make sure. I did a rhyme scheme with entendres, because people pronounce it that way, double entendres. And for instance, and my heart hemorrhaged a coup of magentas. Tired of the purple color, the red color, the bleeding color, the blood color, or rose. So, didn't use crimson. Stay away from that crimson word, please. Well, those are the first two lines. And those were the first ones that popped into my head. And I was thinking from the beginning, the same, it's hard to explain, the same scene where there's carnage on the battlefield. And I see that in movies, and great epic movies that are unforgettable. And that's not it. I have this ongoing theme where I can see the actual ligatures of briars, okay, when the flesh is off the bone, where the bone and the dungarees or the pants or what have you, everything is shriveling and the land is taking it over. And these briars wrap around everything, okay? But I mean it on a very slow process of time, a couple months, maybe a year. The body is still intact. Animals don't always eat human flesh, or it might be a location where there's not animals that want to eat human flesh, okay? So I have that in my mind, thinking of a battlefield where there are many dead and they're just left there. Okay, that kind of, I want to say, uncaring feel for the duality of man. Good or bad, whoever won or lost, there's so many dead there, they just leave them there. They don't care to inter them or, bury them in a mass grave like modern countries do nowadays. If people can't identify them, and it wasn't a government just slaughtering people, I'm referring to, like COVID, they got out those mass graves to scare everybody. And it turns out the only people in New York that were dying were homeless people and older people with actual COVID who were comorbid and their hearts couldn't take it. But there was not mass graves because it was only the poor indigent homeless people that were probably on their way out anyways because of drug usage and their compromised immune system. But remember when they were showing all these dug holes back of hospitals? It was all fear mongering. It was all promoted by the medical establishment so that they can keep on promoting it, so they can issue in a bad drug that might or might not kill people, but it ain't going to cure you from COVID. Well, it turns out it did a lot of kidney damage, Dr. Fauci. Remdesivir, Paxlovid. Paxlovid killed my buddy Steve, by the way. If people haven't seen my other videos long ago. So, hemorrhaged is a good word. wanted to put in for some symbolism there, but it's a good word to use with the blood and bleeding motif and sanguinated. Okay. And they asked me why I write. Okay, a blanket of pall bested a banderole crest. I wanted something showing like a coat of arms, or you know that one song by Peter Gabriel? I'm trying to remember it. The one with the flags and them fighting each other. I love that song. It's one of my favorite all times. It came out when I was a younger kid, and definitely adolescent, preteen. And I love that song, talking about, you know, the kids fighting. Da, da, da. Well, anyways, if you see that video, you'll see kids or someone holding up the banners like they're going to war, you know, or it was the regular people, kind of like Rage of the Machine, okay? Rally around the family. Pocket full of shells, rally around the family with a pocket full. You see, I want to say Asian militants with flags while they're marching. Whatever that was cool. But Peter Gabriel did it first on his video, but I forgot the name of the song. I'm sorry. I wanted to give that feel like they were in a battle. Okay. I didn't want to go into the stabbing, the decapitations, the loss of limbs, the gangrene, the lament of the person that was just killed, and everybody was like looking around. All right, who won? You know, both kings are, you know, a mile apart from each other, and they're like, dang, I think we lost that one. You know, and then they retreat. I didn't want to give that impression. I wanted to give the impression the damage was done, the carnage is there without using carnage, cadavers, so on and so forth. I like the corpse word because it's kind of what it is. It is what it is, and it ain't no more. I can get into cadaver. Can it be part of a rhyme scheme? But more importantly, if I don't use it in a rhyme scheme, can I use it in the one-line verse in a multiple rhyme within that one-line verse of a couplet? Cadaver, whatever. You see what I'm saying? And there's not much that can go with it. Cadaver is not a word I'll just dismiss, but it could cause problems by syllable count alone. Okay. Oh, I love this one. Where the slippery greensward came to a halt. Okay, we're back. I'm sorry, my phone just said trying to reconnect with the big red button. Where the slippery greensward came to a halt, a churlish heaving choked on a phlegm malt. Okay, I wanted to keep it simple, and I wanted to use after halt, like an actual stop to something. Where the slippery greensward came to a halt. Someone is walking, and they come to a foothill of a valley, so to speak. It might be just a little dip going down, you know, in the skyline of the mountains to the side, but you see the valley is right there at your feet. Churlish heaven choked on a phlegm malt. Phlegm, I wanted kind of a disgusting feel to it. Heaven choked because God was not there in this battle, and now those lost souls in the battle that were taken over by nature, so to speak, might be a very unholy ground, let alone hallowed ground. Okay, so I wanted to give that feel churlish, kind of nonchalant. What was that? Mistreatment and being mean, churlish, heaven. Heaven ain't going to play around with us sinners. They're going to judge us maybe harshly, some harsher than the others. Frozen still within a heaving rib cage breast. Okay, rib cage, I always thought as two words, or I'm sorry, one word, but when I was just making sure, it said rib cage could be two words and one word. And so I was like, I'm not going to combine it. Rib cage breast, it sounded the same, so I didn't say I see any issues. Frozen still within a heaving rib cage breast. The blanket of pall bested a banderole crest. The banderole is the flags. The crests are on the flags. And so I wanted some emotions there. The blanket of pall falls upon the land, so to speak, because there's so much carnage and death. It's a place where you would not see God. And Jesus might not be there either in your hearts. Witnessing that, observing that, feeling that, perhaps being one of the injured that was blessed to live, but you have to survive and get away from there and live the rest of your life injured, maimed. So I wanted that blanket of pall, like a pall coming out, the darkness coming over the land. Taut leathery wool. Here's where I get into some specifics. In the picture I see in my head, taut leathery wool unspun in the weathering pools. Well, guess what, people? When all these people are battling and they got footprints all over the place, and they sit there and they rot, the rain is going to make puddles and holes and little pools over time anyways. Just imagine the drought. Everything is going to shrink some in that drought, and it's going to expand again with all the downtrodden, I want to say trodden areas that were beat down. It's no more grass because of all these soldiers on it. And let's say those soldiers just were taken, all the dead were taken after the battle. You're going to have like a divot in this big part of the field where everybody fought. Okay, that's what I wanted to work on and not come out and say it. I just wanted it nice and simple. Frozen still within a heaving rib cage breast, the blanket of pall bested a banderole crest. Taut leathery wool unspun in weathering pools. As rubies sunk in the burgundy tarn of fools. Tarn is another good word. Poe was famous for modern, I want to say, cross between modern language and Old English. And Tarn was like the river Tarn or a Tarn river or Tarn lake, basically a body of water. Okay, it's often used in English literature, not just Old English. I mean English literature, modern too. So I brought back that word because I did use that at times in some poetry, some earlier poetry. And I really enjoy that word. Okay. As rubies sunk in burgundy tarn, in the burgundy tarn of fools. I really enjoyed. Those are one of the another couplet I love. The deane. If you look up deane, it's basically like a little alleyway or alleyway. It could mean like a sward is to yard. It's like an area of grass, an open area of grass. So it's different than a yard, being a sward of land. Okay, it's a plot of land. A deane is similar as like a dade or the deane, D-E-A-N-E. There's another word for another deane-like word. It's not deigned. I deign you to do something. It's like I order you, I believe is the word. Well, I made sure that I know this word, so I made sure I use this word because I wanted some of that older feel to it. And I know this word. I've used it maybe one time, I think in the last 4 years. but it says what I want. It's basically like a valley area. Okay, it could be used as like a generalized valley area, like the valley floor. Be it a skip, fell an arid mirage. Bad weather, the putrescence of the bodies is now drying out. I wanted to give it a feeling of loneliness with that. But I love ruby sunk in a burgundy tarn of fools. Okay, I was very happy to do that one in particular. The deane, be it a skip, fell an arid mirage. I'm doing some, I want to say some switchback sound play with that because of my Shakespearean roots. You know, where you're not putting every adverb in the world in poetry, and it makes sense. It has a poetic feel. The deane, be it a skip, meaning it's not that far, fell an arid mirage. It got dried out and hot, where thirst of the land quaffed souls in barrage, meaning the death and all the weapons that killed people. The thirst of the land was quenched by all that blood. Okay, where thirst of the land quaffed souls in barrage. I didn't want to say a barrage, and like elaborate about what barrage. So I wanted to leave that kind of feel in barrage, as in it's a state of death going on. And I use the apostrophe for that, denoting that something may have came before a barrage. Vapor serfs. I read that right earlier. Sometimes I'm moving the cursor and I can hit a button. Vapor serfs and swelter abandon a king's altarage. Altarage is it's like a dower for a king, you know, or a queen's dower. The altarage is what would you lay at their feet as gifts. Okay, I use it in that context. It's basically leaving something as a gift to the altar where priests are. Okay, you help them survive while they're spreading the good word of Jesus Christ. So you're leaving presents and money at the altarage of the church. Altarage. Barrage and altarage. That's how it's pronounced. Altarage. But you can say it altarage, like us regular Americans say. But it's altarage. Kind of like entourage. Late in the tempest prayed, P-R-E-Y-E-D. They're basically either going up to heaven or they're going down to hell in a tempest. Nil patina, farriage. Okay, I looked up the words and the rhymes with age, okay, with barrage and what have you. And farriage, I think I used the version before, F-E-R-R-I-A-G-E. And there's different ways. It's Old English for sure. It's archaic, okay, and it's hardly ever used. But when we think about the moat of red groat, okay, moat of red groat, I wrote before. Recurring, not necessarily dream, recurring vision I see of red water that's kind of like crystal. It's kind of like you can still look through it. Kind of like a jello kind of feel to the haze. With moat of red groat of red moat. Moat of red groat. Anyways, it's been a while since I've read that one too. But anyways, with that red kind of haze to it, I think of the original concept I had was a person with going to the other island of death, and he needs safe passage or he'll be lost forever at sea and hell. Okay, so does he have coinage to give the ferryman? That is basically death. you know, the skeleton with the black, you know, garb on. And so the farriage came in handy. Farriage, soft G sound. And again, people first reading it would say farriage, you know, like steerage. You know, it's like, no, farriage. Altarage, entourage. So I really had fun researching that. Lament of the dead begot, he'll silently recoiled. Use some commonality there. Here's where the vision I was seeing, you know, and my inspiration was this place eroding. Like mountainsides turn to basically valleys and soft valleys and woodlands, and everything breaks down, and then the nitrogen and trees and everything build up forests. The Appalachians are the oldest mountains, they say in the Western Hemisphere at least, and you would not think so because they're not huge, but it's because they've been worn down throughout time, millions and billions of years, and it's pretty much broken down into fine soil where we have trees and vegetation. In suckling red valleys of corpse heaped, this is a little bug in my crawl. I did this early this morning, last night when I woke up late 11 p.m. I looked at it, I was like, it's still not what I wanted to say. Okay, so I kept the rhyme scheme okay with recoiled and spoiled and suckling red valleys of corpse heaped. I wanted the litter of cadavers and corpse and bodies there. And then what happens? The vegetation takes them over. Grass lay upon fields as the verdance consumed, pale bone marrow glazing, thorned-brier tombs. Yep, someone's going to be sucking the marrow out of those bones. It could be the plants, not only animals. Over time, as it sits there, and no one cares. Flesh expiring breath passes in the wind's howl. I imagined someone basically giving their last breath, and you know, hearing the breath from their lips. You know, like you see whatever, I want to say cameo, but when the camera zooms in at someone dying of importance in a movie and they say their last words in a whisper, you know, that kind of feel. Winds howl as the leaden, saddened, dead slept in a millennia's bow. I wanted to give it like 1,000-year kind of feel. Bow, I wanted to use something like entrails. Slain spirited souls in the eyes of spooked magpies. I was taking a shot at any bird or any passerby. I think I used the passers-by word. And I was like, nah, I don't want to use it. I can count probably on 10 fingers how many times I use passerby or passers-by. So I was looking for something similar, and researching England has a lot of magpie birds, and I didn't read too much into them, but I did study where they're from, or where there's a lot of them, and it just worked out. So the plural was magpies. It just sounds like food, don't it? Lingering bogs underneath a forgotten blonde sty. Bogs famous in England, where people were lost in bogs, or they were killed and covered up, maybe in mass graves after war, but then the bogs unearthed them, you know, 500, 600, 700, 800 years later. Blonde, I researched, blown. I was looking for something that I wanted better than sogged. Sogged I haven't used, I don't think at all. besotten I have, that kind of sound I was looking for, and I couldn't find it. So I was looking for rhymes with T-E-N at the end, or T-O-N, similar to forgotten with T-E-N, and to keep it that kind of flow. And blonde, like blown, a Scottish word for blown. It's kind of archaic, and it worked. And I was like, blonde, okay. Blonde sty, because it's a quagmire of carnage, is the way I wrote it. Infernals, someone burning in hell. Suffer torturous flames of penitence. I go into an occasional 3-syllable rhyme, but I wanted it to be a little more, I want to say royal, majestic, sounding older, has a kind of majestic feel to it. So penitence came right to mind. And I was like, oh, okay, I want to make sure, penitence. I wanted to make sure I had everything straight. So I researched that word. Infernals, I researched that one. I was thinking of internals, but it's overdone in poetry. Infernals are basically people dead in the walking dead in hell, languishing. It was a good metaphor. Suffer torturous flames of penitence. And wisp of metal, it's another word for souls, ascend in fogs of benevolence. They're basically going to heaven. In due time, if they didn't go to heaven right after their death, in that quagmire sty, they might be lingering until heaven accepts them. All right, we're almost done. Dissolving in a blush mountain's navel brawn. I was thinking of proud mountains dwindling down, and blush, I was thinking of basically what I was seeing was the wearing down of a mountain, and the valley being more and more, I want to say decaying plant matter. Soil, dirt, everything was more and more building up over that boggy area. So the mountain is not what it used to be, but at the same time, it's high enough to be snow-capped. Researched some words related to snow, often used, sometimes too often used. So navel is an apt description, and it's actually used a lot, I didn't know this, with meteorologists. Navel has to do with the snow amounts, how deep it is, the type of snow. Nival, N-I-V-A-L. And brawn, I wanted big shoulder mountains, kind of not so big anymore. A juster king found under soiled clod, roots thereon. Keeping with that bog theme, and soldiers lost forever there until someone, gives them a proper burial, archaeologists find them. I wanted the good king to basically have died for righteous purposes, and that's where his corpse is found, or his bones. Found under soiled clod, root systems I could have went into. Clod was simple enough to keep the rhyme. Soiled clod, soil and roots mixed together. You pull out some grass, you take the whole thing out, and it's nothing but a mess underneath. Roots thereon. So a good king died, and he didn't get the credit he deserved, is what I wanted to impart, and it can be anything you want it to be in general. Juster king. I was looking for 2-syllable words that were related to kinder, but I wanted to find majestic. Majestic is used too often in poetry. And I was like, talk about writer's block that I don't really get. It's like I will research and research the word until something fits better than adjuster king was simple. We don't use juster that much anymore. And it's like saying, hey, that was a juster judge, you know. He was juster than everybody else that throws the book at you and makes you pay for tickets, so on and so forth. I do italicize when I print up my poems, and sometimes they look like they're spaced apart wrong, just because of the actual letter digit. So that was Daggled Fields Forgot, and there wasn't much politics to this poem. I like doing some period work. Again, I will research synonyms, and I love doing period work with those synonyms, and people that have accused me of just looking up words and throwing words in there, they got the whole idea wrong. Because they don't do poem and don't know the tenses of the word, and a better placement for it for some articulation, okay, and some, I want to say, smoother sound for that line going into a couplet, then that's on them. You have every right to do your line the way you want, but are you going to use crimson? I ought to write a list of like 10 main words that people use too much, you know. And I went over a couple of them the last poetry reading I did. Let me see here. Frozen is often used. It's kind of hard to get out of that. Greensward I liked. Something to use differently than valley or a patch of land that has grass and weeds all over it. Mauve is a good color to use. Magenta might be, I wanted to use it as a rhyme itself because it's often used in magenta. It's, I want to say not often in poetry, but it's used in artistic ways so often. Malt is hardly used unless you're talking about beer, wine, ale, mead, sangria, liquors. I know there was some common ones everybody uses in poetry, and it's verdance I've used before, but I try to limit that because it's not used that often in anybody else's poetry that I've seen. Some literary works have the verdant and verdance word in it. I have seen that, but I discovered the word myself first. Not that it hasn't existed, but for me to use it, I used it before I've read it more in other literature. It's like, oh, I like that, you know. Corpse is often used in horror. I used 2 syllables because it was plural. Corpses heaped, spoiled. Benevolence is a nice, I want to say, religious word that sounds nice. And it rhymed with penitence. So when I was looking up same sounds and rhymes, I was like, yeah, that absolutely fits in, because not everybody in war are evil. And it's sad to say. Not everybody that dies in war are evil in particular. So paying some homage to fallen soldiers. There's some benevolence there, why people want to defend the United States and our people here. People in general want to defend their own people, and they'll become soldiers. Hey, it's a job. Blush, navel is a newer word I use. Metal, I hardly ever use. Well, I guess I was good at making sure weaning out many of those common words. Like tamarind I like for a brown color. Okay, but indigo can be used too often too. Rose colors, red colors. I like for red colors, I like the cerise one. But how often are you going to use cerise for blood red? People are like, this is another P. Francis McNichol poem. It's like, churlish is literarily sound. It has been used before in history, I know. But anyways, crimson is way overdone. That's my only point. So mauve is used often, but with a one-word syllable, mauve can get you out of a lot of trouble. So I like mauve. It's rare, but... So that's it. I hope more people can watch this video and enjoy Daggled Fields Forgot. It'll be above this post once I finish. And I thank you guys. I hope you have a great rest of your week. Take care.